very insightful guest with us this week, Marisha Mathers, Marisha Chaos, writer, I guess that'd be author, blogger, mental health, uh, therapist, advocate for the whole mental wellness space. Uh, Definitely very honored to have Marisha Cares on the podcast with us.
You know, I actually learned something during pre-production that I wouldn't know. I think that the crowd would love, the audience would love to know. I heard Marisha has bars also. I think that's fire. A therapist with bars. That's something marketable.
Oh, I heard about the bars.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I heard.
Someone
We
else said that a
we gonna put
therapist
you on
that
the spot.
does spoken
We gonna
word,
put
they
you on
thought
the
it was
spot.
him.
But I'm just, I thought that was cool.
Oh
I
yeah,
appreciate it.
a poet. I think.
Poet.
A poet. A
Yeah.
poet. That's what it is. But yeah, we'll hop into it. Uh, I know the fellas got some good questions lined up.
Well, I guess I'll start it off. I guess we could start from the beginning. What inspired you to get into the mental health field?
At risk youth.
Mm.
So initially, I wanted to, once I kind of got into a career or looking at a career, I wanted to be an attorney, and I wanted to defend youth that were in the juvenile justice system. But my senior year in undergrad, I decided that I didn't want to go to law school. And so it was like, what in the world comes next? So after I heard about the MSW program, they had a concentration in juvenile justice. It was like, okay, cool. I felt like it's a wide field, and it was, like a good mesh with a criminal justice degree. And so initially I wanted to work with policy, and I still do want to influence policy. But the more that I worked and interned with at-risk youth, and I started to see patterns, and I started to see even like some of myself in them, then it was like, yeah, this is a vibe.
That's dope.
Okay. So I guess a little bit of almost jumping right into it. I know that you have a book that is releasing. Has a really, really interesting title.
I fucks with it.
And I don't know. I'd love for you to give us like just a bit of background to it. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So the name of the book is Big Mama Was Wrong. It's the
Mhm.
second and final part in the series, Big Mama Was Wrong. The subtitle is Embracing the Growth and Awareness. And a lot of people have given feedback that said like, oh, that's bold. Because, Big Mamas are the hierarchy, or I'm sorry, the matriarchs.
Matriarch.
The matriarchs of our families. But there are a lot of things like, it says breaking generational curses is more along the lines of breaking generational mindsets, because everything that older generations have taught us is not correct. And so things, especially when it comes to the scope of mental health, it's a lot of things that have been misunderstood. A lot of things have been kept secret. A lot of things have been just kind of pushed down, and a lot of things have been ignored that should not have been, that possibly, like I think Braille was saying earlier, that there will be additional generations that both people in the relationships will have emotional intelligence. But possibly if we didn't have those type of mindsets that have been passed down, then perhaps it could be expedited.
Yeah.
So we don't have to wait 1 or 2 generations behind us to see the type of growth and the type of Black love that we would like to see.
So I got a question. Going to the title, and I'm not familiar with your family's, dynamic or what's going on, but the title Big Mama Was Wrong. I already know how it's gonna go in my family if I'm saying, if I'm telling everybody Big Mama wrong. It's gonna be a bunch of pushback if the title of my book and Big Mama Was Wrong, and I'm out there in public just saying Big Mama was wrong. A lot of people gonna be upset with me. So how did that go within you and the dynamic of your family? Just even the title of your book, not even getting into the content of what you're pushing, but how did that title go over with your family?
My parents were cool with it. And I believe that they were cool with it because sometimes people say like mad scientists, they try things on themselves. So whenever I became a therapist, whenever you're in school or you're getting training, you start to look at your own self. And so I started to realize like, dang, we could communicate better. Or, maybe it's some questions that I hadn't thought about asking my parents that I could ask. And so we really grew as a family. So whenever I put the title out there, they justified it to make sure I wasn't talking about my grandmothers. After that, we were good.
Okay, yeah, there you go. No, I
They
like that.
clarified. I think I said justified. I meant to say they clarified. They wanted the clarification to make sure like I wasn't talking about, their mothers, and after that it
Right.
was all right.
It was like make
Yeah.
sure. Okay,
And it's not even just big mamas. It's Mimi's and the abuelas. Like it's just older generations in general. But
them great aunties, them great aunties.
right. I just had to start with us because that's where I was seeing the bigger patterns at. So
Now,
that was how I focused on Big Mom.
so what are some things that you would say that Big Mama got wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Suffering in silence.
Mm.
Mm.
Definitely suffering in silence. Working hard and not smart. Um, what are some other things I would say? I'll break down suffering in silence. Things, family secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I understand things should stay secrets, but there are some things that should have been told and should have been addressed.
Facts.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Emotions being a form of weakness,
Mm-hmm.
not crying. Everything is I'm always okay. I'm always all right. Um, mistaken, mistaken. What's the word? What do you call it when you're just putting up with something?
Tolerant.
Yeah, mistaken tolerance for strength.
Ooh,
Mm.
okay.
So there
She
there
dropping
are
bars.
Yeah,
She
cold.
she said she had bars. These are bars right now. It's
it's
Okay.
coming.
just
Okay.
those type of things that
That's a
as
strong.
we get as we grow, we understand like, yeah, that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. So I've done a lot of like mental health assessments and talked to a lot of people, and I found that in a lot of families, people who were abused by family members had to still go to family functions with that same family member, and it was like never brought up.
Mm.
Crazy.
Um, it would, and I mean, like multiple students would tell me that. Like, listen, I was in there with like a family neighbor. Every time the family neighbor came over, it was the same thing. It like we just act like nothing happened, or if somebody's being bullied, suck it up. But in reality, it's kids killing themselves
Facts.
over being bullied.
Mm.
But to say, hey, this person scares me, or like this person is really doing stuff to harm me, it comes across as being weak.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you this?
For
As
sure.
I think we're all of the age where like we're not necessarily becoming the big mamas of our
Mm-hmm.
generation, but we're the parents of our generation, and we're that generation in between.
Mm-hmm.
As the title of your book being "Big Mama Was Wrong," moving forward as the future leaders of our generation, what does that correction look like? How like being the future big mamas and big daddies of our families, what does that not being wrong look like? Or what are some of the skills that us as future leaders of our families should look to kind of negate some of the wrongdo
Mm-hmm.
or not wrongdoings of the previous generations or some of the shortcomings or of what they may have missed.
Yeah, like the areas of growth.
Right. Yeah.
Um, the first thing that comes to mind is communication. So before it's like if you ask an elder something, ain't like because I told you, because I said so,
Mm-hmm.
or because that's what I told you, and not really getting the emphasis. That stuff's not gonna fly with younger generations because they're gonna Google it,
Mm-hmm.
or one of their peers that they already assume knows everything anyway is gonna tell them, and it may not be correct.
The
Hey,
information's
you know something funny
Right.
about that? I literally find myself about to tell my daughter because I said so. She at that why age, but why? But why? that came into my head about 50 times. I ain't used it yet, but I understand where it comes from though. It comes from a
Yeah.
place of like, bruh, you
Because
don't
it's a
leave.
because
Yeah, because the thing is that they'll but why a question that you don't that they'll but why something that you don't really have an off the top answer to give you right now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not really a direct answer that I can give you
but
and
you should.
articulate it.
But you should.
I
Tell 'em.
should, but that's what. But
But
see,
you-
that's the thing. That's what you
but
get
you
because I
should.
said so.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like the natural. Now, but I agree with you 100% though. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that because
So
I said so. It's definitely one of those things we should leave in the past.
I think well the other thing is making the communication mutual. So I have nieces, all of them are adults except for two. And so the youngest two, I always tell them it's all right for you to disagree with me because I don't know everything.
Mm.
But make sure that it's respectful. Because
Okay.
we could communicate positively and we can, practice mutual respect because it's stuff that I learned from them. Even my 5-year-old, she spit stuff all the time. Like, did you know? I'm like, no, I did not know that. But like, we don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to shut younger generations down because we disagree with them.
That's a good
Mhm.
one.
So that them saying something and we being the type like, shut up, or they have opinions.
I
These
think
younger
you said
generations,
something
they want
very
their voices
valuable.
heard. Hmm?
I think you said something very valuable about like we don't have to have all the answers.
Mm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
because you're older doesn't mean you have all the answers all the time. You
Mm-hmm.
might
Mm-hmm.
have good insight on certain stuff, but if we look at the world that like our kids and this future generation is living in, it's totally different than the world that we came up in. So we're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna have all the answers every single time. And sometimes it's okay to say that and admit that as a parent because not admitting that it's not being real. The
Mm.
act like you got all the answers all the time, that's fakeness. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like a lot of times people lose respect is if your parents or the authorities act like they have all the answers all the time
Mm.
in a world that's not the world that they grew up in. You don't have all the answers. So I think
Yeah.
that's a very important thing.
Tone, what you
I
got?
would actually like to pose a question here. And this is to the whole panel. What would y'all say are some of the things that, and I'm saying Big Mama because this is the conversation, but I'm talking about in general, like even our mamas, grandmas, and everything. What are some of the things that Big Mama got right that maybe we leaving behind?
Mm.
Mm.
I think family. I would the first thing that comes
Loyalty.
to mind is family.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It's family. And I know we should have boundaries in our families, but valuing your family, being grateful for your family, and supporting and loving each other. I think that's something that we should definitely replicate throughout generations.
Agreed,
Mm-hmm.
100%.
And to build on that, like I would say that's loyalty. That's a certain sense of like I decided to be here, so I'm going to work to build this thing that we both agreed to build. And I think it's a certain sense of loyalty that came with the women, our grandmothers, our great aunties, our great grandmother. Like I feel like our mothers, there's a certain sense of loyalty that I feel like they had towards the men of that generation that's not there amongst the women nowadays.
Something else was
Oh,
self pride.
I was looking at your body language on that one too.
oh,
You
no.
was
Oh, no, I disagree with
you was
Johnny.
tapped
That's
out
right.
on that joint almost the entire
No,
time.
no, I wasn't tapped out. I just disagreed with Johnny. I think that the loyalty part is the issue that we just was talking about is one of those things of suffering in silence,
Mm.
tolerating and not I forget like that how you framed it, but I think that yeah, I wouldn't specifically say loyalty because sometimes you gotta tap out when it's not a inducive space.
But
Like
there's certain
there's certain loyalty
times
that you shouldn't have to certain people. Like so again, like
but
loyalty is why you as a
resilience is a good feature to have too though.
sure resilience is probably a good feature. I wouldn't say loyalty because loyalty to your family is why you would be at the family function and you wouldn't say anything about uncle whatever that did whatever. Like there's a family loyalty that goes to that. Well, I'm not going to put him out. I'm not going to get him arrested. I'm not going to like. We're going to keep that over here, and we're going to keep it quiet. And I don't specifically
Nah,
think
roof
that
that nigga, bro. He
right. There is no
Fuck this
loyalty to
nigga.
that.
That ain't got nothing
Get
to
him
do with
out of here, bro.
loyalty.
No, but it does have
That's
something
the
to do with
only thing that
loyalty,
it
though.
deals with.
No,
That's
but
literally.
I see what you're saying though, because
Not
the thing.
loyalty ain't gotta go that deep.
All right, you just talking about soft loyalty. Okay, all right.
Well,
But it could be loyalty
go ahead.
with
Go ahead.
boundaries.
Say it again.
Like it could be loyalty with boundaries.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think everybody should have boundaries.
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
you should
So
have
it could
boundaries.
be like you have loyalty to
You
an
gotta give
extent where
Billy Brown
it comes
She's
shoes.
at
trying to
some
save you, Johnny. It's all
She
right.
just save
She's
you.
trying to say no. You was on a that was a dumb lazy. My bad. We can't bully because we have a licensed therapist on here, so I can't tell them that
I
I
ain't never got bullied.
And I'm gonna tell you,
Just say
this is
that.
okay. So
I'm a nigga that ain't never got bullied.
You know, anytime somebody make that statement,
yeah,
okay.
they had to deal with Big Daryl. Big Daryl was taking the man's lunch
Hey,
money.
Big Derek cut this right.
He said Johnny was short. He had Johnny upside down by one
Big
leg,
Daryl cut
shaking
this.
that nigga like
Big
this,
Daryl cut this right hook.
shaking the coins out that man's pocket.
What happened when you went to that bathroom? And he was waiting for you?
Cut that right hook. That's all I know. Big Daryl, man.
All right, well, let me go back to the. I got an answer, and I know this may be a controversial answer, but as y'all know me, I be on the traditional side of things. I think that one thing that Big Mama did show, at least the women in my family, the older women, and they showed a value of masculinity. They showed a value of men, and I'm not saying I don't really see it as much as we seen it with Big Mama. Like when I was at my grandma before my grandma Lizzie before she passed away, we go over there. My granddad would eat first. Then it's the men. The men get the plates first. The men get the big piece of chicken. You know what I mean? The women in the room serve the men in the room, and then you know what I mean. So like there was the high. I ain't gonna say that it's yeah.
So,
I appreciate as a traditional man. I appreciate that that level of respect that they had for men. I don't think that is an average that you would see that in an average dynamic today. So I for me, I appreciate that Big Mama had that there. And what do you got, bro? What's on your mind, bro? You disagree?
No, I totally agree. But I was gonna say, are women in today's world, are they eating a big piece of chicken?
I don't know. I get the big piece of chicken in my house.
Like I think every man, I think we still get the big piece of
Bro,
chicken.
you know,
I don't know,
because
we have a woman on the
big
panel.
piece of
We have
chicken,
a
bro.
woman on the
Come
panel.
on. You know, women out here eating a big piece of chicken, bro.
Hey.
We'll sit there act like
I don't know. Maurice, what is your thoughts? Is women eating a big piece of proverbial?
Are women?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was trying to avoid this, but I'll take it there. Over time, women have had to become more independent for one reason or another. Women have had to become more independent. Now, I understand what Rel is saying traditionally. Yes, definitely respecting men and, giving them the big piece of chicken because they were working, they were providing, they were protecting. But you don't always see those type of traits in relationships now. And so with women becoming more independent and with women experiencing different types of traits in relationships, then there are some who still may be prone to feel like, oh no, this chicken is mine. So I think it varies.
That's crazy.
I thought that she made a fire point in which I know he nipping at the bits, but so I
don't know what I'm finna say.
All right, then I think that what I'm about to say might be a great alley oop for you. So what it sounds like, if the woman is the main provider, she should probably get the big piece of chicken. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that
if she got to do it herself.
no, not even so years ago, let's say we're looking at the 60s, you had more traditional looking families where there was a husband, a wife, and children, right? Men were the providers. But as times have moved further, you see a lot more single moms, and now you see single dads too, but you see a lot more single moms. So if single moms are out here getting it, and they don't feel like they can trust a man, or the man is not consistent, then they may be less prone to feel like because it's a man coming into the room, he gets the biggest piece of chicken.
Right.
So,
Does that make sense?
Oh no,
that
I
makes
agree.
perfect sense.
Like that, I was saying it ignorantly. You put it like really like
Eloquently.
eloquent, but that's what I was saying. I agree with
Okay,
that. I understand
I
what
got
you're
you.
saying. Real.
What you got? Go ahead, Real. What you
I'm
got?
gonna stay out of the weeds because I was just should I
So
stay
said,
out
if
of the
she try
weeds
to
or not?
grab that big piece of chicken, what you doing, bro?
My thing is, bro, I
No,
get the
what if
big
what
piece
if
of
she
chicken
bought
in
that
my
big
house.
piece of chicken and you was just sleeping on the couch the
And
whole
you
And
day?
said
see,
you was
now
gonna
we
get a
got to.
bit.
And
You
see,
said
this
you
is
was
where I
gonna
was
get
gonna
a
go.
piece.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Hey,
saying.
and this is where I was
She
gonna
deserved
go.
that big piece of chicken.
And this is where I was
She
gonna
just
go.
picked up that what was that? That was a chair she put in that
And if
U-Haul.
she make you eat that little piece of chicken in front of the children,
Hey, she give up.
Take your ass out and make some money.
She
That's
give,
the problem.
she give Daniel, her son Daniel, the thigh. You get the wing.
Mm-hmm.
She give Daniel the breast, and you get the wing.
Mm.
That's rough.
So,
But
so now that comes with dynamics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes with dynamics, because even if a man may not be able to provide at some point, if he's um implementing or providing in other ways, he's still worthy of respect.
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
And I
Okay.
think that's where it comes in whenever y'all were talking about like being a safe space, being vulnerable, having hard times and challenges. So I understand that. Because of how I believe like marriage should work, because the man leads the house under the authority of God,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
then Daniel would never get the thigh and my husband get the wing, unless that's what my husband
That's what.
wanted.
Hey,
But every woman does not feel that way. People like women, and I'm not like disrespecting men, but women have gone through a lot and having to be like the provider, the mama, the protector, and nurturing. It's been a lot. So it's not always easy whenever you've been the only adult at the table getting whatever piece you wanted, when someone else comes in and they aren't necessarily fulfilling the roles that you legitimately need to say, you know what, you take this.
and see, I think you're taking the high roads. And then we're in the 2B. This is the 2B fair show. So, and though you're talking to men, we still talk about Tyrone. So it's so you know what I mean. You don't have to be so eloquent when talking about Tyrone because we understand Tyrone and we
we
talk
don't
about
fuck
his
with
ass too.
Tyrone over here.
You know what I mean? So and the thing is what and I'm not saying that at the
Well,
end
they
of the
don't.
day.
I don't know what Tyrone is, so
Tyrone is the
don't
opposite.
include me into what
Oh
y'all
no, so
feel.
Tyrone
Go ahead,
is the opposite of
Nice.
Shaquita. It's the male version of Shaquita.
Just make your point, and I'm gonna say if I agree or disagree. I don't know.
Anyways, let me get back to what I was saying. So
I
the
just think
thing
we wanna
is
be
that,
roped
like
in
you
with
were
this
saying,
nigga.
there was a time period where, let's say you use the 60s, for example. There was a time period where there were more men in the households and men were providers. Men were leading their families. The thing is that there were still Tyrones during that time too. What we've done is that I believe that the picks have come. The picks of the ideas. I don't know if we're picking for leadership as much as we're picking for other things.
Pleasure.
So the pleasure, exactly. So I think that is the byproduct. And so we because I know that like if we sit here and look at it, most of the dudes I know, I can't really think it would take a nice minute for me to think of a man that I know that wouldn't lead, that it's not a leader. But then also they're also taking care of their kids and they're, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think that though women have had to step up, I think that a lot of it was self-inflicted. I believe a lot of it's self-inflicted because if you're chasing after Tyrone's, expecting Tyrone to be Daniel, then I mean, what is the? I think you have too high of an expectation of somebody that's already shown who they are and have consistently been this in their past, present, and to think that you'll have a different outcome is crazy.
So the accountability
So who's
falls on the
Daniel?
women.
No, I think that the accountable. We talk about Tyrone should be accountable for himself, but if you pick Tyrone, then you should be accountable for
Gotcha.
your
No, he
decision
said
to pick
you
Tyrone.
should be
No,
Daniel.
I heard
You
what
should
he was
be
saying,
Daniel.
but I guess I guess as we start rebuttaling this,
Let's go.
we do have, and you. This is just again bringing your point back to you. You speak about how a lot of niggas just like do facades for women. Like the way that they end up having sex with women is that they sell a dream. And like a lot of guys, they
But a
be
baby is
they
different,
be
though.
a baby is
You
baby
can
just
sell a
come off.
facade to just drop. Like a facade does get you to be able
How
to
many
have sex with a
babies
woman.
come off of dropping?
At the end of the day,
Most
like-
of them.
Like
Most of
yeah,
them.
that's what I'm saying. Like 6-7 months,
Most of them.
and then it kind of come off in like 6-7 months,
I mean,
especially if
that's
you're
rough.
younger. Especially if you're younger. We
Yeah,
speaking
that's
younger.
true.
Like it's if you are getting Tyrone at 35, there's a problem.
Yeah.
But there are 35-year-old Tyrones.
A
Other
lot
than
of 35
There are 50-year-old
I agree.
Tyrones.
Oh,
Facts.
I for sure agree. I think that I then put the accountability on that woman. If you 35-year-old and if you're
still
35
getting
years old
tricked.
and you getting tricked by a 45-year-old Tyrone, there's an issue there. But if you 20 and both of y'all 20, he ain't even really like grew into his Tyrone all the way.
Yeah.
Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like
But,
the things
I mean,
that you choose.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I do. I get it. It's just that I've seen sometimes where
We did Tyrone.
different factors in relationships show people what they're made of. So sometimes you may have had a Daniel that became a Tyrone because of what happened in a relationship.
I don't like
Right.
these names that we using.
I know that's what turned you off every time.
Yeah,
That's why
they're very
Daniel
like
sound
they're
like-
Fire, right?
Nah,
serious.
Daniel
Daniel
hold
sound
it
like a
down.
Caucasian. That's what he sound like.
Daniel-
Oh no, Daniel's also.
I like Ahmad. Like a nice
You
Ahmad.
got to make sure that it's a black man. It's got to be.
I need my names to be
Tyrone and Ahmad.
Yeah,
That's
Ahmad.
what we're
Okay,
going with.
Tyrone and Ahmad. You may have entered the relationship with Ahmad, but then
Yeah.
situations occur where Tyrone showed up. Ahmad may not have even known he was a Tyrone until the stuff happened, right?
Now,
You
it's a
know,
fact.
like
I
babies are a
agree.
serious thing. Marriages are a serious thing. So when these different factors come up, they show you what you're made of. So it may not even be that people are tricked per se. It's just people change. Situations change.
That's also very true.
That's very.
I
true.
know some Tyrone ass Ahmads though.
Gotcha.
Well,
So
look, I had a question that I wanted to make sure to ask.
you know,
So we're gonna get back to the book. And you as a therapist, was there anything that along the way, like as you were writing the book or as you were, being within your profession, was there anything that like a statistic or maybe something that you saw? Let's say that we naturally or societally we believe that a thing is going this way, and in actuality, this is the case. Was there anything that kind of stood out to you along the way? That that you would like say like, wow, y'all think it's this way, but what I'm seeing consistently is that it is actually this way.
One of the things that stand out to me the most is during the time that I was writing this book, I was watching an episode of a show. It's an Amazon show that has Megan Good in it. I don't remember.
I love me some Megan
Harlem.
Good.
Harlem. Whenever one of her friends kept going to the doctor saying she was in pain, and it turned out that she had something like life-threatening going on, but because she was a black woman, they were like basically insensitive to her pain. And so I read some time ago they did some research that found it was, I think, out of Virginia. They studied 222 people who were in school to become doctors, and half of those people believed that black people felt pain less than white people.
Pain tolerance.
And it related to something like they believed that blacks had thicker skin and something with their nerves, so they didn't feel pain as much.
Well, it's because they don't look at us as humans.
Well, what year was that?
Like-
That was something that was, and I heard that too. I just don't remember what year that was.
So whenever I read it, it was I think I read it in like 2020, and I went back and found it recently, and it said that it was several years ago.
Okay.
But what they were saying, I think what amazed me is like people who really still believe that. So
that is like the biggest thing with women, and I'm just recently going through this with pregnant black women in their mortality rates when it comes down to giving birth, where there's an assumption that the black woman can take a little bit more pain, and so like they allow that whole space, and then when she's complaining about something, like it's like that, like they're less likely to get the same version of health. And which my daughter, she was born like not at the closest hospital specifically because of that.
I get that. I think when you look at situations like that, like, so I was talking to someone and they suggested if your pain is a 5, say it's a 6, so that people would take you more seriously. And I don't think we should have to do that.
Uh-uh.
But it also
Absolutely.
made me think, okay, if people still have myths, if people still have these type of beliefs, right? And that's in the the physical health. Um, what's happening in the world of mental health?
Mm-hmm.
What myths is it that we don't know about? Because I read something, I think it was earlier this year, about there used to be when slaves would try to run away, it was someone that would say like, "Oh, that's a psychological condition that makes them want to run away." So it's
Bullshit.
like,
That's
what, freedom?
crazy.
So so
He
I
wanted to
think that
be
there may
free.
be some things that are behind the scenes that we may not necessarily know about, but they play into um how people are treated.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and I got one more question before we move forward. This is it's a little bit different. So I just let you know. So like I've been been like diagnosed and been in therapy, and I've kind of gone through the whole thing. And so, well, not the whole thing, but I've been prescribed medication for it, and what I mean, didn't like the medication, and I've gone through a bit of those type of that wormhole going down it. I have a question. So this was something that like it kind of spurs a thought that came from. We have a lot of mental health conversations as well. Have you ever seen where someone would come in and they would be pretty much diagnosed as like you don't necessarily have a mental illness. It's just something that it's the way that you're perceiving the world. Like that, it doesn't require an actual diagnosis or anything. Your diagnosis is you're being soft. Like you're not being you're not straightening your back
You're
and
being
actually
too soft, like I asked
you understand? Like
last
it's not
week.
necessarily a mental illness that you have. It's just the way that you're viewing things. So like an idea of like where a cognitive behavioral therapy would be the first treatment that we would look into instead of going into like a more medication based therapy.
I don't think that I've ever seen that per se. But I have seen where, specifically when I used to work with adolescents were diagnosed with diagnoses that were more so related to behavior without considering other factors that could be related to their emotions.
Mm,
So if the child all of a sudden starts stealing and lying as it has become aggressive, then it looks like it's more of a behavior, but in reality, they got kicked out of their home and they had been experiencing homelessness for a couple of months.
mm.
Um,
And
or
what
I'm
type
sorry,
of
go ahead.
I was gonna ask. So, when you say you like therapist, so are you more speaking like a one-on-one therapy, or were you doing like group therapy, or was it like a mixture of the two?
I did both, but I did the assessments that I did when I was diagnosed, and those were always one on one.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so sometimes whenever you're doing assessments, if a person has been assessed or treated in the past, you want to get that because that's considered like collateral information. So you want to be able to read through. So as you're reading through stuff, you're like, this diagnosing could be a little more differently. I
Hmm.
saw a lot of adolescents that if they had received mental health treatment maybe a little earlier on, I may not have ever crossed paths with them.
Hmm.
Well, no, I got one. I do want to extend the platform to Marisha and see if she has any questions for us as a panel. Um, Before I do that, I do want to ask maybe one of the questions we had last week was, are we too soft as a society? It seems like it goes very close to where Rail was as far as like mental fortitude and just being able to work through some of the mental stuff out there. Do you think there's a pandemic of people being mental ill, or do you think we need to just focus on being more mental tough as a society?
That's a good question. I've seen both.
Hmm.
I've seen some people that, because they've been privileged, it's made them a bit fragile, whenever changes happen or whenever things are not, they don't get the results that they would like. So in some of those instances, I would say, you may need a little bit more exposure in the world. you may need a different perspective.
a little bit more toughness, and I don't think that's necessarily like the worst thing to have because we live in a society where they tell you to be, mentally vulnerable and you gotta focus on your mental health. But sometimes all the mental health is, I just need to be more tougher to achieve the goal that I have set out. And I don't think all the mental health, you can go all the therapy in the world. If you ain't got that mental fortitude, it's not necessarily going to work out
That's
for you.
true. That's true. I agree with that. I think sometimes there are people that they just have a lot that needs to be processed, a lot that needs to be worked through. And I don't think it's that they're not resilient. I think it's just that they need the assistance. Like in general, not even looking at classes or any type of structure, the world is in a lot of pain.
Mhm.
No, that's facts. No. I definitely agree with that. I believe like if you start breaking the shit down, like most of us got some kind of PTSD or there's something traumatic that everybody has been through uh that we're gonna have to work through. And I don't think that's negated by I'm from here, I'm from there, or I'm a
Hmm.
man, I'm a woman. I think that mental health space is gonna be something that we all have to work through.
Yeah,
I
but
agree.
um,
Hey,
I would say, well, I'm not gonna comment on that. I'll Marisha, we would love to hear a question that you have for the panel.
My question that
Or
you have for the
yeah,
panel is, I think one of the things we had already predetermined is like all of us are '80s babies.
hmm
So with us being, I feel like we were born in one of the best times and one of the best eras ever because we weren't born so early that technology is super new to us,
hmm
but we also weren't born like in these later generations where technology is everything.
hmm
True.
It's like we had the best of both worlds. Like we can ride a bike. Um, we
yeah,
know how to go outside and entertain ourselves and things like that. But we also know if somebody hands us a smartphone, we also know how to navigate the smartphones. So
Yeah.
I just feel like we were born in one of the best eras. What are some of the patterns that y'all feel like y'all have seen in our generation that you feel like you could do without? Whether it's upcoming trends, because I know Rail was talking earlier, like he's people do a lot of sound bites and he's not big on that. He's not big on buzzwords,
Mm-hmm.
which leads me to believe that he's not gonna jump on every word trend. So,
Them joints.
like, what are some of the patterns that y'all seen in our generations that you feel like we can do without?
I'll go. The biggest one for me is clout chasing, and it's
Hmm.
the doing whatever you can to get eyes on you
Mm-hmm. That's
versus
what I'm
like
on.
actually like building
shout out to Charleston White.
and like shout out Charleston White or whatever. But like to me, clout chasing is something that I feel like it takes away from the integrity of a lot of arts, a lot of like music, a lot of videos, movies, TV shows. I feel like a lot of people go to clout chasing as their way to get the views as opposed to actually doing like good music, actually doing good TV shows, good art. I feel like
Hmm.
clout chasing it takes away a lot of the integrity of the certain mediums of art that we fell in love with
Mm-hmm.
growing up. And that's one thing I would definitely take away from the future. Like just clout doing something that you know is not good, but a lot of people will watch.
And I mean, just can I get two quick ones off? I'm gonna rapid fire these joints. So, one is being for sale, having a for being for sale culture. That's one of those things I talk about all the time as well. And then the second one is celebrity worship. I think that
Hmm.
those two things, like we can do the frick without those, bro. That's like literally like I think those two things are
They
one of the
both
major things that are like taking us down the wormhole of like Just like even leading to like what you were just talking
Well,
about.
I'm saying both of those lead into clout chasing.
Yes, I was saying
They directly into clout chasing.
that for sale, being for sale.
Ex-
Everything can't be for sale, bro.
And for celebrity
Everything can't
worship.
be. You can't will be willing to do anything for $1, bro. And then the idea of the celebrity worship.
I wonder if a
think that
piece of
those-
human nature is the idea of celebrity worship, because even in the Bible, it speaks about
worshiping idols.
yeah, idols. Like it's the
Mhm.
same concept.
Yeah, but see, you don't have to idolize a. See, I think that he was
But
talking
But that's
about
why
more
that
to
was
like,
one of the 10 sins to like they told like you ain't even got to read the Bible to know the 10 commandments that to tell you that worshiping idols is not a good thing to do. So
yeah,
celebrity, that's one of the things.
well, I'm not making this like a point to agree with. Like you should worship celebrities or idolize. I guess I'm just saying, like I almost think that that's like a human nature thing, where it's. Go ahead.
I think that there's when I understand what you're saying, human nature is like to think that the person that can do the highest backflip is like the obviously you can do a backflip higher than anybody else, like so that's a thing, like that's like being the best basketball player, that's a thing. But I think that when we start to look and measure ourselves up to them and critique our lives based on what we believe, which we're only getting fractional information about who they are and what they really stand for us to measure ourselves up to that is where that is where the biggest flaw lies. It's because like that's like the idea. Well, either way, I've said enough to explain. I believe I've said enough to explain what I mean.
Yeah,
I would say though, just answering this question, I would say I think there's a level of arrogance we have within our generation, and I would say it comes within every generation. But I think we've seen enough of it to where we should start to recognize it, like where we have the ability to recognize this arrogance of we're better than the other generation beforehand, or they.
I agree with this. This is my whole thing with y'all hip hop conversation.
Let it go.
Oh, nah, yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah,
that's a whole other thing.
Go.
I gotta do some research, a little research.
Right.
You gotta research.
Yeah, he got a week to prepare. And we're gonna push it off another week.
See, and this is the beautiful thing is that
I don't want to talk about
with no research, I could eat to y'all every time because
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Like this is the big thing about like when you talk out your ass and like you talk from the facts. When you're like a person that don't listen to anything but what you listen to, and then you make statements.
I'll wait to see the
I would like to speak.
Hey, I'm a referee that shit because I ain't on neither one of them. Hey, I hope you got some research.
Oh, I do.
I hope y'all boys
I don't
come.
need research. I'm like that.
I'm
like
that shit.
When you talk out your ass, you don't need research. All I know is that when I went to 1992.
Hold on, we're gonna talk about
the first video.
Don't do the research.
Next week. That's cool. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say regardless. But
he definitely gonna say what he's gonna say.
Nah, for sure. 1992. The first video I seen was NWA. F the police.
But that wasn't the majority.
That's cool.
So that's for next week. You gotta let him just get this off.
Yeah, like I was saying though, the arrogance I was talking about was more so of the thing where we sit there and we dismiss ideas that like older people might present to us because we're like, oh, that didn't work. Or even us, the way we understand things, like for the time period that they was living in, it might seem like it was stupid what they was doing or that was foolish. But it's just because of how we understand it. Like, oh, well, it's this better way to do it now. So what was y'all doing back then? Like, people gonna look at us the same way. So I think that's one of the mistakes we making right now. Like,
yeah, I completely agree. I think that if I say hip hop, if I say basketball, like these are two specific ways that I see older generations view newer generations and newer generations view older generations. And I think that like it's literally like a reciprocal effect. But the younger generation does the exact same thing as the older generation, but we're all doing the exact same thing. But if I was to answer the question, I'd probably say arrested development. If there's something that us as a generation, our specific generation, that we suffer from more than previous generations, and I think that that's a little bit dealing with the onset of the internet. Probably, I think that around the time that Jay-Z said 30 is the new 20 was around the time that we as a culture became arrestedly developed. And if I was to say that there was a thing, I think Instagram and all social media platforms have expedited the idea of arrested development specifically because of it's a comparison culture. and everybody's still trying to stay abreast of everything that is new. So yeah.
That was a smart ass answer, boy.
You know how
What made it so smart, bro?
you know how you give smart answers when you do research. My bad.
I feel y'all. I think everything that y'all pointed out is relevant. I feel like the thing that comes to my mind is division. Like Rail, you have not yet. Rail, you have locks, and then if I got locks, but I'm gonna tell you straight up, if I got locks tomorrow, I'm probably gonna have some of those natural extensions in it that have the desired length that I want coming out the salon. So a person that might have lots of your length is gonna be like, oh well, I did it natural. I did it. Mine are real.
Yeah,
Mine
he got
yeah,
it.
yeah. Instead of just like respecting it
But it
that
was his own
locks
extension.
are
He got
locks.
the extension. No, my.
No, just saying, like just respecting the differences without always having to have one up on what somebody else is doing because yours seems to be like a better way. And I'm just using your hair as an example because
I
your
appreciate
locks look
the
nice and I
example.
like
I
locks.
appreciate
But
that. I understood exactly what you were speaking about. I was there
yeah,
with you.
So,
yeah,
so
okay.
never mind. We ain't gonna feel her.
I'll just say, hey, I actually was about to quit the
Copy
podcast.
and paste.
These guys here, bro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have another?
Put in my 30-day notice.
Did you have another question for us?
Yeah, I think my last question to y'all is, I guess among everyone, what is y'all take on mental health in general? Like, do you feel like it's real? Do you feel like mental health is not real? Do you feel like
I go.
there's relevance to what you're seeing with people saying they have ADHD, depression? Do you feel like all of it is man-made? Like, what is your take on mental health?
My take is because my question last week was like, are we too soft as a society? And
Mhm.
I think my take on it is I think we focus on mental illness too much and not
Mm.
mental wellness and mental health and like actually being mental health like actually doing the things that make you a mentally healthy person. I think we focus and a lot of time the mental illness thing, I think that a lot of time it's like scapegoatism or that's an excuse for you not to do the work to make you mentally healthy. You can just rely on, oh well, there's a mental illness. I had anxiety, I had depression, and people lean into all of these like mental illness things where there's people that actually go through that and that's not for the average person when you go through a bad time just to use that as a leg to lean on. So my thing would be not focusing on mental wellness and our just tendency to lean on mental illness uh would be the answer to that
Real?
question.
I think my answer going to be, I think it's a bit of both. Cause okay, so I say my mom, she was in the mental health field. Like she'd been in maybe like half of my life. I was going around and seeing her. She was doing like in home care and stuff. And I can't remember. There was a lot of different like staff where they would sit in and they had like the goals and everything, and they would be in house, going and visiting people. I've been bowling with guys with like it's so I've seen like the more, I won't say extreme, but the more extreme cases than us day-to-day people that are going and doing 40 hours and families, and you know what I mean. So I've seen like how far this thing like bipolar, like I've actually seen like a true bipolar person, bipolar manic depression. Like I've seen these things in like live time and seen slap them on. You know what I mean? I've seen flip over a table. I've seen like the behavioral things that the extremes that they go to. But I not all. But I will say so that's real. It's not whether I don't believe that there's a question whether it's real or fake. I think that I think that the self-diagnosis the self-diagnosis era that we're in, I think that is where you ask whether we're too soft or not. See, the self-diagnosis part is where we're sitting here using these words too. That's why I don't like the words. We're using them way too loosely to diagnose very normal and natural human emotions and experiences.
Like saying sadness is depression.
Right, like what we talked about, you know what I mean, last week. Like
You can be
that
sad.
idea. I like I said, like I done been prescribed Zoloft, I've been prescribed Neurontin, I've been on different mental health drugs as well, which I like cognitive behavioral therapy. I think I have the ability to think my way through a thing and think a thing through, like I said. But I've seen the extreme cases where I think medication is the way in which this is going to be resolved. I've seen like they have like a chart that they'll do and like write out everything that you have to work on, and they'll, you know what I mean, you actually have to take this person out to go and be around, go to the bowling alley, or just have a social experience with them. And then I've seen all of these things. Like, you know, my brother worked in the gym when I was, you know what I mean. So like I've seen how they go, and I think that probably is the reason that I was kind of like a little bit easier to like go into, you know what I mean, getting a little bit, because I've been around it so much.
Familiar.
Exactly. And I didn't think about that until we were having her on, and I started thinking about what kind of questions I wanted to ask. I was like, damn, maybe that is the reason why I was like not so, you know, shying away from it as much, as because my mom was just doing the shit like my entire childhood, bringing us around them. I remember I got suspended from school for 10 days. And it was like this place in where it was only,
you was a bad motherfucker.
Bro, I was just trying to figure myself out, bro. But there was a facility where you would have like people with mental health, like the mental disability and physical disability. There was like from my memory, it was like a warehouse, and it was a lot of them in there. And they loved my mom. My mom was like, my mom always been stern.
I love your mom too.
Fuck you. That was perfect timing, you bum ass nigga.
Perfectly timed.
But I'm just making it. See, man, you messed me up on my explanation, bro. Hey, that was perfect timing. Okay. But you a bum.
Can I go?
Go ahead, you can go, man.
Okay.
I thought I was going into a place to get to a place.
Oh no, I think you was going somewhere. Yeah. So it is what it is.
That's what I've been talking about, bro.
But yeah, no. I guess so. Background wise, psych graduate, special needs teacher for like, I don't know, like 3-4 years, 5 years. I don't know, however long I was at Metro, and in which I think that through my experiences within both of those, I think to what Rail says, and I don't think any of us is going to say anything that's too different than the other person. Where mental health is real, and especially when you work with like that population, what you tend to see is that they tend to, and I work with like special needs people, where they are an exaggerated form of what we do, like all the way down to coping, to like different things that we do to soothe. You can see them do something to where like it gives them blisters, but you will see a person when they're uncomfortable do a very similar thing. And it was for me a piece of that where I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. But in general, mental health, all of us kind of sides at a very similar space where I do think that there is a space where we are, as a society, a little too soft. And like there's this victim mindset that is set where it comes from an over access of information, one, in which a lot of self-diagnosis will come from. And I also think that as well, though, is the counterbalance, and this goes back to that Tyrese clip, where there is a counterbalance of what is healthy expression of emotions that a lot of people are dealing with and understanding. And there's a lot of people, especially if we speak towards older generations, who mental illness is dealing with the fact of not actually getting the cathartic experience of expressing their emotions, and it's always pent up. And that ends up becoming a ticking time bomb that explodes. So that's where, again, like a lot of these things that I think it ends up meeting in the middle, where there's some soft motherfuckers and there's some people that need to actually open up and have real conversations. I was just having a conversation with our homeboy Jeff. Jeff is he's the season 1
Suave
of the podcast, in which we spoke about, and where it wrapped up was there is a benefit. There's specifically a really interesting nuanced benefit of social media at times, where if you, like the right person, what it has did is humanize. And there's a lot of niggas that growing up, we looked at them as like, oh, that's the D-boy, all the niggas in the hood that was up the street that was doing this shit that your mama told you that you couldn't go do.
Mm-hmm.
And like you put them inside a very specific mindset to which like there was no real humanization to it. Like they didn't have emotions, they didn't have any of those
facts.
Things. But
there was monsters, there was
there
animals.
were monsters, right. But when you actually end up seeing them posted and you end up like breaking down some of the walls, oh, you are a fucking regular person.
I seen that
just
nigga
like
crying that you said was a monster.
Right.
To see that it'd be crazy.
He mad regular as well. And so, like I said, I think that for me, the balance of mental health is somewhere in that middle space where there is a toughness that needs to be there, but then there's also an acceptance of some of that softness or vulnerability. Yeah.
I do want to answer this. I think mental health is what like I'm gonna say it like this, a disease. Like when you break that down, it's dis-ease. And what we tend to do with diseases in this day and age is we tend to celebrate those. Like if you notice, there's a ribbon for like every disease that like you got a ribbon for ADHD, a ribbon for autism, ribbon for cancer, ribbon for all of this stuff, to where it becomes a thing of almost like you're celebrating the disease rather than actually focusing on the cause of it or what's actually going on. Like, so when it comes to mental health, I think a lot of people just want to be seen. And what ends up happening is you have some people who exaggerate things to a point of, like, they use mental health to basically be seen. Like, oh, I have this problem. Like, they want to use that problem, or they want to develop. Like, some people develop problems just self-develop. Like, it's like I keep telling myself I got this, so eventually, that really becomes a thing. Like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
I think that me understanding your perspective on mental health leads me to more questions and more podcasts. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. I want to completely unpack it all right now.
We did get a comment right
okay.
here. One thing that a lot of black men never think about is that the amount of concussions that black men expose themselves to through fighting, and that's something that needs to be said. So maybe basically, I think he's saying like
not even fighting, but football. And I came up in like football city, USA. I know that shit when it comes to concussions. Like,
no, it's really big, and I say that I
literally like firsthand. Like I go down the whole. Like I know niggas that then crashed out off of having CTE, and people don't ever like. When it comes to like mental health and asking motherfuckers, you look at a motherfucker, he been in the league, so he's successful. So when he come home and not being successful, you don't question is what's about to happen. Is he gonna do some crazy shit? You just be like, nah, he just that mental toughness. Nah, he just need to get that shit together. And I done seen when that nigga can't get that shit together, what happened? Like,
yeah, and
it's crazy. And like you laughing, but it ain't.
No, I'm not laughing
at
what you're saying at all. No. What you were saying is not a joke at all. I was just thinking about the concussion thing. Is where I remember I've had a concussion. I ain't get knocked out. Like, thankfully, I ain't had nobody put me to sleep. I always took naps on my own time. Except, I slipped on some black ice one time and went to sleep, bro.
I played football. I done been out there on kickoff coverage, but now let's go.
Oh no, I was gonna say to the concussion point. No, I worked with somebody that was an NFL tight end for like 10 years, and this was at when I was teaching special needs kids. And again, since CTE is real, mental health is real. Where with him, he ended up getting fired because he had lapses in which he couldn't remember what was happening. And he would become aggressive and violent during those lapses. And this was happening, like, again, if you understand it's the profession of teaching, it's mainly females. And so you can't be like a teacher assistant and being like overly aggressive and saying just all the different random shits. Like, it just was what it was.
And they wasn't going for that shit. And
also the idea of like the military too, the PTSD. I remember seeing a guy rolling around in a dog, in a what do they call them? The little play joint, little gated in. No, I'm talking about like in your apartment complex, they'll have like the dog park. Yeah, the dog park joint. I done seen a dude in there cutting flips and like diving over stuff. He had, went from PTSD, bro. Then it's raining outside. We was over there just kicking it. And bro done went outside like, where he at? And bro was over there literally diving and dipping and stuff.
I think there's
in
a
the dog
to actually address the causes of these things,
Well, no,
or is there more a push just to?
I tell you to push. Like one
The
thing,
push is pharmaceutical.
well, not a push.
Nah, that's
Sometimes
to address the physical effects on the body. I'm saying addressing the cause of it.
I'm gonna tell you because like coming up in Rock Hill, my city, they call it Football City, USA. My first football coach ever, his son went league. His son went to play for the Patriots, played for the Raiders. Jet. He was NFL nigga. Like one of my best friends growing up. And growing up, his daddy used to give us stickers on our helmets if we had hit a nigga hard enough to hurt him. And like also you got hit hard enough to where you was hurt, you get a sticker. Headhunter stickers, what they call them. I used to want to get them all. Like I used to play. It was some niggas that had them stickers all over their helmets. Headhunter stickers. I only had like 10, 12. I only had a couple of them. I was trying to get more of them off my helmet.
Hey, Johnny was out there whopping Johnny ass. He was getting he was getting them
I was ready for him to say he had all of them. When did he stop? He was like,
I ain't get as many as I wanted. Like I wanted more headhunter stickers.
He specifically remembered the one. He made sure to say, yeah, you used to get them too for getting laid out too. So,
I had a couple for getting laid out. I had some concussions, but my boy Philip.
But it's not funny. All right.
It really ain't. Cause my boy Philip, if you look up,
but
like,
you allows us to digest these
exactly for
conversations
sure.
way better.
Yeah, but my boy Phil, if you look up like NFL, he did a shooting down in Rock Hill, mass shooting, because of the CTE.
Yeah.
And they went and they studied his brain after he did that shit. He had like one of the worst cases of CTE out there, like ever, like outside of like Aaron Hernandez. It was him, and he did some violent shit. But it's like the mental health and the toughness. There's a space for that, but there's also a space where people be fucked up in the head, and you do have to get certain. You can't just always rely on mental toughness because it's not going.
Yeah. No, I agree. So did you I don't know, I guess we'll ask you to answer your own question, because I do think that that's a really good question for a therapist to answer specifically. And then you can kind of let us know where we can get your book at, where they can find you at. And yeah.
Okay, so I do apologize. My AirPods died, y'all. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you great.
Thank you. I believe mental health is very real, and I believe that we're tripart beings, so body, soul, and spirit. So, the example I use is if you had a cough for 2 or 3 days, well, or longer, especially after the pandemic, you would look into it. But if you see any changes where your thinking may not be the same, or your feelings or emotions are not used to, you're not doing the same things, people tend to let that linger. But your mental health and your physical health really go hand in hand. Because sometimes you can be experiencing somatic symptoms because of something that's going on with your mental health. And then, as tripart beings, your spiritual health is important as well, because all of it is it's in the same vessel. So I believe that mental health is very real. I believe everyone has mental health. It's just that everyone may not have a mental health disorder. But everyone has mental health, and I think it's something that we should maintain and take very seriously, the same way that we do the other portions of ourselves.
Completely agree.
That actually made a lot of sense.
Yeah, especially the idea of separating mental health from mental disease, mental illness from mental health. And so the idea is that mental illness is where you would think that like prescriptions and medications will be more make more sense to implement versus just mental health, because it seems to me, I agree with you 100%. Everyone has mental health problems. We all have to we have growth to do mentally, and you know what I mean, to we all need better tools to help us to get through this thing that we call life. As we know, trial and tribulation is the natural thing, a natural part of living, and the way that these things affect the body are also natural. But then there's an extent of which this thing becomes, it goes a little further, which is where you're talking about the actual mental illness, right?
Mm-hmm. So we don't call it mental illnesses so much. We more so call it mental disorder or like a mental health disorder because we like to use what's called therapeutic language. So earlier, I think it was Rail and Johnny were talking about how people had these stereotypes and they were like, but you find out like, no, they really are people. So the same way, you don't say like, oh, he bipolar. So like we try to use language that's very inclusive and therapeutic. So we more so tend to use the word mental health disorder than mental illnesses.
Gotcha.
Um, a mental illness is whenever there is a change from a positive health status. So think of it this way. You feel normal on an everyday basis, but then you start sneezing, coughing, you have congestion, and then you have I don't know, headaches, right? Or some your body aches or something where you have the flu. Once the flu is treated, you go back to your normal state. So
Right.
everything is your physical health, but when the illness comes in place is whenever there's a change. Same thing with your emotional health. If you have a normal state, but then you start sleeping too much or not sleeping enough, eating too much or not eating enough, you have difficulty making decisions or concentrating, you may be a little more irritable or choose to isolate, you don't have any type of interest or passion in doing things, then now your normal state has changed and you're looking at possibly depression.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, so something you had said kind of gave me a thought. What would you say are some good mental health exercises? Because just like you gotta exercise your body. What would be the things that could to do to exercise your mental?
Practice gratitude is one of my favorites to mention.
Okay.
But practicing gratitude, meditation, self care, whatever that looks like, talking about what's bothering you and not bottling it in, seeking mental help, mental health treatment or mental health help if you need it, and also being aware of yourself. Because if you're not aware of yourself, then you may not be as conscious of changes that are happening.
Mhm. That's a big one right there. That's a really
that's a
big
big
one. Paying attention to where you are day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those hard ones too, especially as men. We kind of just wipe everything. You know what I mean? We just, oh yeah, I felt this way. I'll be all right. I'll be all right.
I don't be doing that shit. I ain't
Bro,
gonna
I swear, growing up, I've always been
Hey.
that guy.
For a while, probably was, but
Hey, but
more,
look,
I really don't.
I think we'll definitely appreciate Marisha.
For sure.
Marisha,
Did you let us know where you could find the book, where we can find the book at, and where they can find you at?
You can find me on Instagram and Threads at Marisha Cares. My book, you can get it directly from my website, callmarisha.com.
Has
You
it
can get
released?
it. No, it comes out Wednesday.
Wednesday.
The first version is out. The first part of the series is out. That's the one that's generated towards teens. But
Wednesday is what, the 12th?
13th.
13th. Okay,
Mhm.
December 13th.
December the 13th, it'll be available. You can order it from our website or you can get it from major distributors. Most people are more familiar with Amazon. I'm also trying to get it in some local bookstores.
Okay.
But the two safest bets to find them right now would definitely be Amazon and my website.
Marisha.com.
Callmarisha.com.
Callmarisha.com.
Mm-hmm.
1213. Please go get the book.
For sure. I think we're going to grab one too and put it up here with the rest of our books up here as well.
Oh, yeah. We got a bookshelf. Like, if you hadn't, we got a bookshelf. So please.
Add that one on there.
We going to get a hard copy. We're going to throw it up there. We appreciate you tapping in with us.
For sure.
A lot of light. It is definitely a lot of light on some of the conversations we've had in the past. We brought them back up. Definitely gave us a lot of insight, a lot of perspective on stuff. So we definitely appreciate you, Marisha, for pulling up. And we got a few questions we're gonna roll into.
So again, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank y'all. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Peace.